Hello everybody, we are here with another Modern Magic video. A few days ago I played Twiddle in one of the weekend Modern challenges, and I wanted to go through some of the matches, go through some of the decisions, some of the card choices, and just kind of talk through things overall. I ended up, well, spoilers, but I ended up finishing 5-3 in the challenge. That's okay, I guess, as a record. I think it definitely could have been better with a couple of improvements on my part. I do still think that Twiddle is in a relatively powerful spot at the moment. So first of all, if we take a look at the deck list that I played, a couple things maybe stand out. One of them is the main deck bolts, which I think have become somewhat stock for the One Ring lists at the moment, largely based on having an answer to some of the hateful creatures like Dauthi and Bowmasters that can be present in Game 1. Also, it frees up sideboard slots in a deck that I feel is very choked for sideboard slots already. And the other nice thing is that it gives us some answers to a resolved Magus of the Moon. Other than that, I do like the one of Manamo in the main deck as a little bit of untapped blue source that also has some synergy with the ring. I'm running 2 breeding pools in order to support Veil of Summers out of the sideboard. But other than that, a lot of this is pretty stock. Where I've done things a little bit differently is in the sideboard. So I don't particularly like Defense Grid on paper. So I've been trying Veil of Summer. I think Veil of Summer is pretty good, especially against blue decks. So, using it to fight through counter magic, but also just in helping resolve, for example, the One Ring. So Veil I've definitely been happy with. Some of the other things that I've been trying recently, a lot of the rest of this is pretty stock, and explosives and Ave, Brotherhoods, and the sideboard Breach Oracle. Grape Shot is not as stock. I'll talk about that in a second. A little bit of Bounce and Tome Scour. All of that is pretty standard. Some of the weird things I'm trying recently, Dress Down, Aria of Flame. The Grape Shot kind of goes along with the Dress Down, because if you're playing Dress Down, then you need to have the Grape Shot in the sideboard. It is also useful to have a Grape Shot and basically have a second win condition in case A, there's something hateful that is blocking your Thassa's Oracle. So maybe something like a Dress Down of the opponents, or if you were in a situation where there was an Endurance that you couldn't play around, and some things like that Grape Shot can just beat. So Grape Shot has a little bit of flexibility there. It can also double as like a semi-board wipe depending on how many spells you invest into it. So that's nice as well. And it does kind of let you play Dress Down, because you can Dress Down to turn off a pile of Bowmasters and Dauthis, and then just make sure you win with Grape Shot. It's additionally nice, I don't know if I said this already, I may have, but it's also nice against Stone Brain. So if your opponent has the Stone Brain and they take out, their normal goal would be to take out your wishes, but you have one win con that you can sideboard in, and that might let you win the game. So those are some of the reasons for Grape Shot. Dress Down I do like in that it sort of deals with a wide board of hateful creatures at once. Veil of Summer does this specifically with Bowmasters, but Dress Down will hit any number of Dauthis plus Bowmasters all in one go, which is very nice. It can also be a hateful or disruptive card against some decks, in particular Amulet. Dress Down is pretty nice against. It can also be reasonable against like Yawg, although they can potentially do instant speed stuff, so you're not necessarily safe with a Dress Down, because they could do stuff like on your upkeep after the, if you do it on their end step, then you do kind of get the turn. But they may be able to do stuff in response. You have to time it well, but Dress Down can be good against Yawg. Other than that, the Aria of Flames. So the Aria of Flames here, I had not played these at all prior to registering them for this for this challenge. The thought process was that I wanted something that was insulated against both Douthie and Bowmasters, while also, yeah, so something that's good against both Douthie and Bowmasters, so kind of no matter how many of those I have another plan. And something that was reasonable against Blood Moon. So basically, I have this here for Scam. I think that, well, just spoilers in advance again, Aria did not really work out as well as I had hoped. I think Scam is really just too fast of a deck in order to play a bit of a slower game with Aria with the amount of control spells we have. If we had more control spells, like basically I mean removal, then I think Aria could become defensible. But with only 2 bolts, they're just going to clock us before we can really kill them with the Aria most of the time, I think. So I'm a little bit less high on Aria than I was. So that's a lot of the thoughts behind the deck. Without any further ado, let's get into some of the matches. And here's our opening hand in match number 1. Now, it has been a few days since I played this league, so I don't quite remember what I did in every single situation. In this situation, I'm willing to bet good money that I mulliganed with only 1 land, and that land being a Lotus Field. Yeah, so I did mulligan. This hand is a little bit risky. We do have a lot of useful pieces though, and given that I'm on the draw, I am going to keep this. Now, I did look up my opponent before this game, and I do have a strong suspicion that they are playing Scam. So against a discard deck, I really don't want to go down to like 5 cards. If they open on like a turn 1 double Scam, and I'm on like 5 cards, I have 3 cards in hand, that feels just absolutely awful. So this hand does also have Bolt to kill potentially like a Bowmaster. If I draw the correct land, I could even kill like a Ragavan or something on turn 1. Or I can also kill a Douthie, which would otherwise shut down my Underworld Breach. So I feel relatively okay about this hand. Well, I feel unhappy about this hand overall, but I feel relatively okay about it given the context of my 7 being unkeepable. So my opponent leads on a Blackleaf Cliffs and Thoughtseize, takes my Underworld Breach, which I'm relatively okay with. We draw a Preordain, which is pretty good because now we can make sure we find another land, so we don't need Sylvan Scrying, but we will definitely take that island. Opponent Thoughtseizes and takes our Vizier, which honestly I'm very okay with at this point. That Vizier was not doing anything really critical for me. I'm basically hoping to just draw a copy of the One Ring. We do draw Breach, which is nice, but I do need a little bit more of an engine to get things going with it. Our opponent is down to 3 cards in hand. They bolted us, and they will go to 4 for their draw step, but the bolt is just kind of them going down a card since life is a resource. So they play on Marsh Flats and pass. So we can definitely just play our Lotus Field here. I do cycle the Lonely Sandbar, even in the face of Bowmasters here, just in case I get something else I might want to play, like a Preordain. It is worth noting that I think they did have an opportunity to play Bowmasters on turn 2, and they chose to play Thoughtseize instead. I think if they had a Bowmasters, they're reasonably likely to play it there. They know based on the texture of my hand that I really wasn't going to be comboing on turn 3, so they would have had time to play this Thoughtseize later. I think it's defensible also from their perspective to just wait and play the Thoughtseize after a turn or 2 more. You may get a better card with it than Vizier. So we play the Lotus Field. Picking up Hidden Strings is okay. Again, the key thing we really need here is we need some form of card draw. In desperation, I could try to go off with Breach Preordain here. However, with what we have at the moment, I don't think it's that likely to work. We draw the One Ring, which is excellent. So they do have a Bowmasters now. We get to untap our Lotus Field, but now we get to play the One Ring. And there's no reason to draw right away there. They play a Fable. We're going to draw a card, Bowmaster's immune, and this is basically our window to win here. Now, they are holding up 1 mana. They haven't done very much with some of the cards in their hand, so I think it's pretty likely that they have a Not Dead After All or something similar. We do bolt the Bowmasters, but it turns out that they don't, so I'm certainly not complaining. If they did have a Not Dead After All, we could afford to take a little bit of damage while drawing, but the main thing that we're going to do is we're going to breach, and then when we breach, we're going to just replay this bolt and kill it again. Or Undying Evil, or whatever scam spell they could have. So given that they still have just been sitting on these cards in hand, I think what they most likely have in their hand is removal at this point. So we play breach. And we can go off with Hidden Strings. And, with Breach and Hidden Strings, you can just draw your whole deck with Ring, and then it's pretty easy. We'll tap down their fetch land, and they don't crack it, but, it's just from a safety standpoint in case there's anything crazy happening. Whoops. I don't know what quite happened there. But as you can see, we have our whole hand in our deck, and we're putting a Thassa's Oracle into play with 0 cards in our library. So we win game number 1. We had a very timely top deck with the 1 ring there. But that is one nice thing about this deck. I feel like in a grindier situation, you actually can top deck fairly well. You have 4 hits in the ring, you have 3 copies of Breach, and you have 4 copies of Wish. And really, in a situation that's like a bit later in the game with a pretty stocked graveyard or a pretty stocked hand, any one of those 3 can probably win you the game. Breach is a little bit less likely to, just because it's reliant on having some way to get to Tome Scour maybe, or at least a little bit of card draw to get to a ring. So basically you need to find a ring or Wish after Breach. But really, all 11 of those are pretty strong. And a lot of your other cards draw cards between Preordain, Vizier, even Sylvan Scrying fetching out like a cycling land or something like that. So the deck does top deck reasonably well. So we win round number 1 in a bit of a steal against Scam, honestly. Their hand was not that good, but my hand was not that good either. So we definitely take that. Or not round number 1. We win game number 1, and we're on to game number 2. So game number 2, we have a hand here that I'm definitely not thrilled about. We only have 1 land, but we do have Sylvan Scrying. If they have discard on turn 1, we're going to be in trouble because they could take our Sylvan Scrying. But we do have Veil, we have Bolt, we have a fetch land with the Bolt, so we have a little bit of interaction. We can kill our Agavan. We're on the draw. So if we can fade discard and draw a second land, we're in, not even just discard in general. If we can fade turn 1 discard and draw a second land, we're in relatively okay position overall. And as I say that, they have Grief. And they Grief, take our Bolt, and then they play a Ragavan. So it turns out that they didn't have the Scam, but they took our means of removing Ragavan, and then they played Ragavan. So that's not the greatest. Our opponent hits us with a Ragavan, and then they have a Dauthi. We managed to not draw the land, so that's bad. We needed to find that land. We had 2 draws to do it. I feel like this is a situation that comes up with the deck actually a decent amount. Maybe that means I'm keeping hands that I should otherwise not be keeping, but I'm in a situation where I have a 1-lander on the draw, and the rest of it is good, and that 2 draw steps to hit a land with, 20 or 21 other lands out of like a 50 card deck, your chances on missing on both are like 3 in 5 times 3 in 5. So you're about 60% to hit. But look, I have that backfire more often than that. And I mean, here, basically in situations like that, you shouldn't be keeping a hand that's 60% to play. You should be keeping a hand that if you hit, you feel like you're reasonably likely to win. And this hand is that. But we missed, and then our opponent had Magus of the Moon. And now we're super dead, even though we drew a second island, because we have our bolt gone. And we can try and buy time with some twiddles here, but it's not looking great. Alright, so that was game number 2, and now let's take a look at game number 3. So game number 3, we keep a hand that has 2 lands and a Sylvan Scrying, a cantrip, Breach, Wish. This hand looks very good. This is kind of exactly what we want. The only vulnerability point is if they discard our Scrying. And so that's why when we see a pair of Lotus Fields with this Preordain, we're 100% keeping one of these. We don't want to get this Scrying discarded and then lose our ability to find Lotus Field. So they do have the Thoughtseize, but because we already have the Lotus Fields in our hand, they take our Hidden Strings, which is, I think, reasonable. We pick up Aria of Flame, which is definitely nice. We Sylvan Scrying for a Steam Vents. So the thought process here is that while, yes, we could play Lotus Field next turn, if we do, and then they respond with land Blood Moon, we are hosed. On the other hand, if we get the Steam Vents, we can play Steam Vents Aria, and then have something in play if a Blood Moon comes down. And the Bolt is nice because we can remove the Douthie. So we play the Aria. And our opponent does have the Magus of the Moon. And so we play the Lotus Field, and here I make a little bit of a mistake. And my only defense for this is that it was about 10 minutes, well, how long was the match so far? Probably about 20 minutes, 30 minutes after I woke up, and I was tired. Because, I mean, I'm familiar with how the Bolt Douthie interaction works, but I was thinking, oh, well, I'll Bolt that and then Breach and then kill the Magus. But obviously, Bolt goes to the graveyard before state-based effects are checked, so Douthie exiles it. This does not work with something like Fatal Push, where it would kill the Douthie as part of the spell's resolution, and then it would get placed in the graveyard afterwards. So definitely a common interaction, definitely interaction I know, but I was on autopilot from being tired, and that is bad, because now we are in trouble. That being said, even had we killed the Magus, our Breach is still useless because the Douthie is in play. Yes, we do have Wish, so with an unlocked deck and Wish, we can maybe Wish for like a Brotherhood's End, remove the Magus, but we have absolutely no gas in our hand, and there's a decent chance we're just going to be slowly dying over time here before we can win with this Aria. Preordain is nice, but then they have a Bowmasters. So between like Bowmasters, Ragavan, Mount Doom, had we killed this Magus, I think even had we killed the Magus, this game was not necessarily going to be something that we could win. And Wish Brotherhood End would have maybe done something, but we wouldn't have gotten the Ragavan because it's dashing. Maybe we get Bowmasters plus the Douthie. We would have also been clocked lower by the Douthie than by the Magus. So I just think that this was an example of Aria. I mean, we kind of had the situation we wanted with Aria, where we got it in play. We were at 15 life when we got it in play, and we just couldn't string anything together fast enough. We got run over by Scam being a little bit too fast. Definitely a misplay. I think there's some chance that could have cost us the game, but I think it's not guaranteed that it would have. So that's a rough start, but you know, we bounce back when we try to win the next 7. This was one of the big challenges. So 8 rounds. So for round 2 here, we keep a pretty solid hand. We just need to use this Consider to find a second land, and then we have Lotus Field, we have Wish, and we have a pile of Twiddles, which is definitely a win. We're on the play, so this Talaria West on turn 1 makes it look like we're Amulet. Our opponent goes Forest Delighted Halfling, and is Yawgmoth. We immediately find a land. I think I clicked very quickly through that. But I considered on main phase because of the possible Bowmasters. Additionally, if we find and hit a Preordain, we will want to be playing that Preordain. Our opponent plays a Wall of Roots, Young Wolf, passes the turn. We play Lotus Field, tap their land, untap ours, just in case of, you know, Bowmasters or any sort of interaction. I had calculated, I think, that I have enough mana here, so there's no reason really to not... Actually, hang on. No, that's Hidden Strings. Sorry. I was thinking that was like a double Dream Script. So Hidden Strings, I have to target something of theirs, so I might as well target, you know, the land, target a creature, and tap things down to prevent any possible interaction. So now we have Breach. We have Twiddle to get up to enough mana for Wish. And now we just have Tome Scour, Twiddle with an active Breach going. And we're going to win. Opponent has no interaction. Nice, quick, clean turn 3, and our opponent concedes. So a couple quick notes about that. One is if you're the opponent in this case, you may not want to. You may just value the time EV a little bit more, but there is some value in just watching everything I mill so that you can at least see my deck list. Had we been playing in a bigger or a more serious event, I think opponents will certainly do that. So, you know, you should have no qualms about your opponent making you play it out. That being said, you should also, when possible, try to play in a way that minimizes the information you give away as much as you can. So let's say you're in a situation where you can either win with the One Ring or win with Tome Scour. If you have no other reason to choose one or the other, like let's say there's a risk of something you need to play around. Okay, then play around what you need to play around in order to win. But if there truly is no difference, then win with the One Ring because it reveals less cards, for example. So, I mean, they know that I have a Pact of Negation in my graveyard. That could be relevant information later. So stuff like that. Conceal information as much as possible. The other thing that's worth mentioning here is what was I thinking? Oh, Yawgmoth as a matchup. I think Yawgmoth is just a very good matchup for us overall. They have very few cards that we care about, and I feel like we are, on average, faster. So that's nice. And yeah, on to game number 2. So with game number 2 here, again, we have one of these one land, but if we hit, we win the game hands. I am going to go ahead and keep this, I believe. We are on the draw. I should say one land on the draw, keep hit, and we win hands. So we play the Talaria West. Our opponent plays a Wall of Roots and a Blood Artist. We do hit the second land, so that's good. It would have been nicer if it was a fetch land so that we could like Sylvan Scrying for maybe like a Boseiju or something like that. But, you know, at least we got the land. I'm certainly not going to complain. Our opponent plays a Grist, which is, again, something we don't care about. No Wolf. And now we have 2 mana. We have the Lotus Field. So there's a couple different things we can think about here. One is that they do certainly have the ability to chord with 4 creatures and 1 untapped land. So we do have to think about, do we want to play the Ring, or are we going for it with... Oh wait, they have 0 cards in hand. Never mind. There's no point in chording. Or they can't chord because they don't have the mana for it. So we're just going to make 1,000,000 mana. Oh yeah, so I think I played the Ring with the intention to win with the Ring. I could have just wished for Breach too, but at this point, all roads lead to Rome. We just have an abundance of everything, so it doesn't really matter. And it's pretty standard. Ring. We're using Breach Hidden Strings to really power up the Ring. And yeah. Our opponent... Oh no, we tapped a land. There's really no reason for it. One thing to note is that a lot of the time when if I have the mana for it, I will play 2 Wishes when possible, when going to the sideboard. It really is not necessary here where I have 0 cards, but it does, if you board out Pact, give you the option of having Pact, or maybe it lets you Echoing Truth if needed. So if you can play 2 wishes, it's usually a little bit better to be just that little tiny extra bit safer and play the second wish to have whatever you can up. Potentially that could be Veil if there was Veils in the sideboard or whatever. Alright, so a pretty quick back-to-back turn 3s over Yawgmoth. So now we are 1-1 in the challenge. So here is our opening hand for the first game of round number 3. This hand is great. It's just kind of everything we want. We have untap effects. We have a Wish as a win con. We have 2 lands, and we have a Sylvan Scrying to go get Lotus Field. So we lead on Polluted Delta. Our opponent leads on Forest or Boreal Grazer, revealing that they are Amulet Titan. They play Crumbling Vestige, Amulet of Vigor. Note that we drew another fetch land, so I'm using the fetch land here for a couple of reasons. One is that when I go to win, this will be an extra card in the graveyard for Underworld Breach, and our life total probably isn't going to matter against Amulet. Another consideration here is that let's say this game does go to turn 4 and I have another land I want to play afterwards. There maybe is a world where I draw the ring and then I want to use Manamo on the ring. So for those reasons, I'm going to save the Manamo and play the fetch land. But in a different situation, maybe you're up against like Burn or something aggressive, then you may want to play the Manamo, figuring either the game isn't going to turn 4 or the 1 point of damage is more likely to be relevant than the untappability of Manamo. So that's not a decision you can blindly make every game. You know, whether, if given a land choice, which land to play. So we play the Sylvan Scrying, we get our Lotus Field. On our opponent's turn 2, they have an Azusa, they have a Mycosynth Garden, another Mycosynth Garden, they copy their Amulet of Vigor. So I think it's, I mean, they have 1 card in hand. If it's a Titan, actually they can't play it if it's a Titan. So maybe, I mean, they would have to have Titan and draw Bounce Land, or have Bounce Land and draw Titan. They could certainly kill us next turn. So if we can, we would certainly like to win here. And, you know, we can untap with Vizier. We can Vizier again. We draw the ring. So we played the ring here because we actually didn't quite have enough mana with Dreamscript Breach for the Wish Breach. Because the problem is Wish is in our graveyard. It's not that we didn't have enough mana. It's that we didn't have enough cards in our graveyard for the replay Dreamscript, replay Wish, and replay Dreamscript. It was just, we were a little too choked, I think, from what I had calculated. If I recall, I think we were like 1 card off. I don't remember that for sure. But Ring makes us pretty much invincible against Amulet, and there's not really any interaction they can have for us. So this is fine. So we have a bunch of untaps. We win with Ring untaps. And yeah, a million hidden strings, Wish, Oracle, all that good stuff. Alright, and on to match number 2. Again, game number 2. Again, I think Amulet is generally a pretty good matchup overall. I mean, if you think of Amulet traditionally, traditional Amulet has always been like terrible against Storm. They couldn't really disrupt the bear that much, and Storm would just kind of kill them. I think modern versions of Amulet are a little bit better there, because there is the point that they are faster with Gardens and Saga, so it's very reasonable that they have like a double Amulet turn 3, which will just kill you if you don't have any sort of interaction to stop it. That said, we still do have like Twiddles, which can potentially just tap down a Titan. So our opponent actually needs to be very careful about what they're doing with some of their lands. If they leave themselves in a situation where they have like a Titan that they're figuring is going to attack, and they're relying on that for some part of whatever they're doing, there's always a chance we just twiddle it and then they can't do anything. They also have no relevant interaction for us, at least in game 1, and they barely have anything sideboard, yeah, maybe like an Endurance. And then we also play the One Ring, and they can't do anything to our One Ring, while we can win through their One Rings with Thassa's Oracle. So again, I think this is a pretty positive matchup overall. Alright, so on to game number 2. Okay, so we have a hand that has a bunch of untappers, the One Ring, 2 lands, no Sylvan Scrying or Lotus Field, but with this Preordain, I'm totally okay keeping this. This has a decent chance of playing a turn 3 ring, and then just winning based on that. Our Preordain shows us an Echoing Truth that we don't keep, and some other card that I bottomed so quickly that we didn't even get to see it. I think it was a land. Lonely Sandbar, again, I just need to find a Lotus Field. Lonely Sandbar is decent because I can at least cycle it. Our opponent plays a Grazer, plays a Garrison, and has a turn 2 ring, which is definitely a little bit of a threat because they do have the ability to draw a bunch of cards with this. So I think it makes it reasonably likely that they play something winning on turn 3. We draw a Vizier, and I'm just going to pass, and basically my plan is if they do something that I have to twiddle, I can twiddle and, well, Dream's Grip and Lonely Sandbar cycle. If they don't, then I can cycle Vizier and Sandbar. And they just pass. So I can do Vizier, Sandbar. We do pick up the Lotus Field. And now we have the ability to play the One Ring. Which is great. Because now we are invincible to whatever they're doing. Our opponent has yet another Grazer, sure. Roll Turf, sure. They play a Titan. They get a Boseiju, but I mean, yes, they can kill a Breach, but we have a One Ring, and we have untap effects for it. Anamo being nice there. We get an additional bit of draw. More Twiddles, draw more Twiddles. The nice thing about Twiddle is that after you get going with the One Ring a little bit, and with Lotus Field, Twiddle is simultaneously Dark Ritual and better than Ancestral Recall. So, like, it kind of means that the point of this deck is to turn your deck into Dark Ritual, into a deck full of Dark Rituals and Ancestral Recalls, which is lovely. That's the best kind of deck. And, I mean, now it's draw 9, so, you know. We make a bunch of mana. We float some red, and our opponent scoops because they see the writing on the wall. Great. So a very nice quick 2-0 over Amulet. And now we're 2-1, and we're on to round number 4. So our opponent reveals Kahira at the start of the game. It's unfortunate. We're pretty close to being able to play Kahira ourselves. It's just that the Viziers kind of tank that. And I mean, we probably wouldn't want to spend the sideboard slot anyway, but just for the bluff value, maybe. I don't know. So we have. Actually, wait. Can we? No, we can't. I was thinking about. I think we can play Jagantha. I have to double check, but worth thinking about. So they play Windswept Heath, and we have land. We do not have a green source for Sylvan Scrying, which is a little bit annoying. So here we can play this Preordain and look for a green source, and we still don't find it, so we bottom those. Our opponent is on control, in case that was not clear. We still don't find a green source, so that's definitely a little bit annoying. I think I would maybe like to slightly increase the number of green sources, maybe play like another Boseiju or something. Our opponent passes back to us, we play the Manamo, and we draw Talaria West, which is nice because we can at least transmute that for a Lotus Field. So the Jig is now up, but we have Pact of Negation in our hand, and we have the One Ring, so we can definitely try and do something where we like force through a One Ring and or win with like Breach Pact. We'd need some more resources for the Breach Pact plan, but if we can get our One Ring resolved, that would be nice. End step, they use Gaia Reach, and I am perfectly happy discarding the Sylvan Scrying. I think this arguably helps us more than it helps them. in general. So, I mean, I guess I don't know what their hand is. Maybe they felt like they had to because they had like a ton of removal or something. They play Teferi. So, I mean, that does turn off our Pact, which is annoying. There's no real reason I can Pact it there. But they uptick, and now this gives us a potential window because we could potentially get this Wondering resolved. It's basically Force of Negation or Bust out of them. And I don't really see a better opportunity, so I'm taking it. However, wait, no, what am I looking at here? What did I do? Oh, right. I would like to, yeah. So part of the issue here is that I don't want to just play the Wandering and pass because they can remove it with like a Leyline Binding or something like that. So I would like to have the ability to keep comboing with like Breach Strings and try to go for something with these Preordains if I had to. Or actually, no, not that. It was not that. It was the fact that I would like to keep comboing with this One Ring, drawing cards, and try to win same turn here. Yeah, so we're going for a same turn One Ring kill here. We bounce both of those. Now we can breach, and then we have Hidden Strings breach with the One Ring. Like I said, it's been a little while since I played this, and I forgot. So the ring resolves, and now we're not open to bindings or anything like that because we're just winning same turn. Okay, so that was a nice little game one. I mean, they tapped out for a Teferi, and then we took advantage of our window that we had. Had they not tapped out for the Teferi, though, we would have been able to do the same thing while having a Pact up. So they would have needed 2 pieces of interaction. So I think it's reasonable that we would have maybe just won anyway, but who knows? So now we are on to game number. So here we have a hand that is definitely a little bit slower, but we have 3 lands, including the breeding pool. If we pick up a scrying, we have a couple twiddles, which are needed. Pact is interaction and consider is a little bit of filtering, so I am going to keep this. Then we pass, or they pass to us. I'm going to preordain here on their upkeep. I don't remember why I preordained on their upkeep. Oh, in case they had a permission spell, because I don't want to lose this consider, given that my hand definitely needs some things, needs some help in order to develop. Our opponent just has a turn 2 Chalice of the Void that I can't counter. That's a little rough. I think Chalice is a 1-of in a lot of blue-white lists, sometimes a 2-of. Then they have a Narset. So, I mean, we do pick up a Lotus Field here, but we can Steam Vents for a Boseiju, maybe Boseiju, and we still need to find a win con. But they flipped Counterspell. I mean, we transmute for the Boseiju. We're doing it in this order rather than playing Lotus Field there, so that next turn we can, like, transmute the Boseiju, kill the Chalice, play the Lotus Field, and maybe try to win if we draw something, or even if not, off of this Preordain. But they hit a Days Undoing with their Narset, and we're busted here. So that's the game. A little bit unfortunate, the Chalice draw, but, I mean, they put cards in their deck to draw them, so, you know, that's how it works. And we are on to game number 3. So this hand is pretty nice. We have 2 lands. We have a Lotus Field. We have a Veil of Summer to try to force something through. Preordained to sculpt a little bit. Dream's Grip, Breach, combo pieces. All looking good. Playing this Preordain on turn 1. I missed the first card. I think I bottomed it though. Yeah. And then the second one was a land, which we don't need more of. Turn 2, we're playing the Delta here for a couple reasons. One is we're probably going to cycle this Lonely Sandbar. 2 is that if we really wanted to and they like played a blue card of some kind, we could cycle this Veil. I think we're basically 0% to do that though. Our opponent has the turn 2 Chalice again. So we cycle the Lonely Sandbar in case we hit like an Opt or something, and then we can... Is our not our Opt, our Consider. Yeah, our Consider's still in our deck. And then I mean, we could think about like playing the Veil here in order to throw it to the graveyard for Breach, and apparently I do. So there's that. Now we go to our turn. We can just play the Lotus Field. We're looking to just develop some mana and then try to clear this out with like a Wish for Brotherhood End or Engineered Explosives. I'm not going to untap there. I maybe could have thought about Hidden Strings, Wish, get Explosives, play Explosives. That's definitely aggressive, because if I like put the explosives into play and then they like Leyline Bind it or something, then we're screwed. And if they see me, like I can't like play the Wish and then play or just bring the explosive to hand. I actually have to play it that turn. So committing to that line means putting the explosives into play, and I'm not super excited to do that here. Depending on, you know, maybe they would need another fetch, but I think that's not the best chances for us. I'd rather just wait and try to have another opportunity. So they get a counter spell with Narset, and we draw another Hidden Strings, which means this is actually our time to go. And you might look at this and be like, wait, time to go? They have a Chalice in play. But we have multiple 2 mana cost and 3 mana cost cards. So, I mean, I'm just banking on no Force Negation, and if they untap, I think we maybe are just going to be completely locked out. So we Hidden Strings, we float some mana, we float some more mana, we Underworld Breach, and we have a pretty stocked graveyard, actually, so we get more Hidden Strings activations out. We Wish, make some green, get Hidden Strings one more time. Note that even in situations like that, I'm Hidden Stringsing after I've secured the 5 mana for Ave. So even if they had like a Force Negation and they just kind of messed up and didn't use it earlier, we were actually insulated a lot of the way through that chain against them having like a late Force of Negation that they just made a mistake with. So I basically would rather make a slightly smaller Ave than tap off at that point, because if they can answer the Ave, they can answer the Ave, but, you know, it's something that I can play around a little bit, so why not? And then we cast the Dreamscript into the Chalice with purely extra mana in order to build Storm a little bit more, and so we have a bunch of slimes. And they're big. 2 through, I think, 10 power. I mean, yeah, they could untap, they could play the Ring. They had Verdict in game 1, so maybe they left a Verdict in. Probably not, though. We're just kind of all in here, so I think in the face of Narset plus Chalice, this is pretty good to be able to do this. And then we pass the turn. Sack the Breach. Go to our opponent's turn. They hit a Prismatic Ending with Narset. Single target removal is not going to cut it here. They play a Teferi, bounce one of our oozes, and play a tapped land. And then we attack them for a whole bunch. And they go to -26 and we win. So that was pretty cool. A nice big Ave through Chalice plus Narset, which is a hateful collection of things. Alright, so now we are 3-1 and on to round number 4. And by round number 4, I mean round number 5, because that's how math works. Our opening hand here is just unkeepable with no lands, so we mulligan. In fact, we mulligan again. I think our 6, I clicked through it a little bit fast, but I think it only had Lotus Field as a land. So this hand is not something I'm excited about, but it can at least play a game. I can keep 2 lands, ship like Wish and a land, and try to find a Lotus Field. Our opponent has a Dragon's Rage Channeler. We preordained. Found a One Ring. They have Ledger Shredder, another Bauble. They have a very fast start here. On turn 2, they've already boosted their Shredder, and they attacked with a turn 3 Dragon's Rage. We draw a Polluted Delta, which is not something we want to see. So far we've played 2 Preordains. What they've seen with the Baubles is One Ring and Island. So, given... Okay, yeah, they have another Preordain. They dash a Ragavan. And they exile a Flooded Strand. So they've seen Delta, Island, Strand, Preordain, One Ring. From here, they have 6, 8. I'm going to play an island, but we're super dead. They have 8 power that they can attack with. Even if they don't boost the Ledger Shredder, which I didn't, my Delta is turned off. And here I'm going to concede before this connects. Well, after it connects, but before the Ragavan trigger resolves, because I don't want to give them that much information. And at this moment, it certainly doesn't look like I'm playing Twiddle Storm, right? So like I've shown 2 basic islands, a polluted Delta, a flooded Strand, 2 Preordains, and the One Ring. I probably look like some sort of control deck that just had like a rough go. So we are on to game number 2. Okay, so we now are in game number 2. Our 7, again, I think I clicked through that a little bit fast, but we had to mulligan. This is pretty reasonable. We have Sylvan Scrying, we can go get Lotus Field, we have Ring, we have Preordain to try and find us some untappers. So I'll ship a land. And we can lead on a Preordain. Don't need either of those, but picking up an untapper is exactly what we need. They have turn 1 Ragavan. We can go get a Lotus Field. Picked up another Dreamscript as the draw for the turn. They hit us with the Ragavan. With taking a Hidden Strings, which I'm not super worried about. We draw a Veil of Summer, which is fantastic, because now we do have the ability to go for a protected One Ring here. So we're going to sack 2 lands. We Dreamscript. They have a Flusterstorm, but we have the Veil of Summer for it. And then they have a second Flusterstorm. Okay. That's a little unfortunate. Double Flusterstorm is unlikely. Much more likely was that they had like Counterspell there, and then we just like stop the Counterspell, play the Ring. But sometimes they've got the double Flusterstorm. Ragavan hits us, and then they have Magus of the Moon, and now we're super dead. Maybe I like give it a turn, but then I just concede. Magus of the Moon seems like, to me at least, it seems like a questionable choice given what they saw in game 1 and the fact that even had they Googled me, by the way, I didn't mention that I've been Googling my opponents, so for the most part I've known what they're playing. But even if you Google me, I have not played Twiddle in any sort of challenges. I don't think I even have a posting with it where they posted the list. So my most recent postings are with like Ad Nauseam from like a year ago or something like that. So you wouldn't have found that I'm playing the Ring based on Googling. So that makes this Magus decision maybe a little bit questionable to me, but again, I'm not my opponent. I'm not sure what was in their head, and you know, maybe they had some sort of reason for what they were doing. I'm curious if there's something I'm not thinking about there. Definitely feel free to point it out to me in the comments. But we just kind of got rolled here. Our opponent had everything. We had nothing. We had mulligans. And sometimes that happens. Murktide as a matchup I feel like is maybe like a little bit unfavored. I feel like it's not bad. Usually you'll have a window where you need to beat one piece of counter magic. It's not like they're a control deck where they have a ton of counter magic. And they're not the fastest where they're going to be killing you. You will generally have that window. It's just that if you stumble at all, then you're not going to be winning that game. So maybe slightly unfavorable, but I think it's not the worst matchup. And we are on to round number, I think, 6 here. What are we then? No, yeah, we're 32. Yeah, that's right. 6. Okay. So our opening hand in round 6 here is definitely a little bit slow. We do have a bunch of untappers. We have 2 lands and a preordain. The Viziers will draw cards, so I'm going to try this. I do keep the One Ring. That is something that we can conceivably... I do need a win con, and even if I just hit some other lands, it's something I could conceivably play on turn 4 if the matchup is a little bit slower. Hallowed Fountain Preordain is encouraging in the sense that the matchup may turn out to be a little bit slower. Our opponent has Phalagi Archaeologist milling Atraxa, so it is not control as it maybe first appeared. It's the Atraxa Goryo's deck. Actually, I'd googled them and I knew that. Never mind. So now I have Vizier on tap. I just need to hit a Lotus Field. And we don't. So that's not great. They have more Phalagi Archaeologists. We have a land that is not Lotus Field. They have an Atraxa. They have Ephemerates. All of the Ephemerates. We tap down the Atraxa to, I don't know, not take the hit, because we have a million Twiddles and we can afford it. They have Ephemerate for the Atraxa. They have all of the Griefs. Grief, Ephemerate, Grief, take all of our combo pieces. I probably should have just conceded there. But, I mean, they already knew we were Twiddle Storm. We cycled multiple Viziers, and we played a Twiddle. So we're dead. So we stumbled on finding the Lotus Field, and then we died. Maybe I should have milled past the ring to try to more aggressively look with the Preordain. But we did need something to do also with our like with all of our mana, because we mostly had untappers. I think there's an argument to be made for not keeping that hand, but there's definitely an argument to be made for keeping it. It does lean a little bit heavily on that first Preordain, and our Preordain was just kind of mediocre. Alright, so on to game number 2. So this hand is not something I'm super excited about, but we do have Lonely Sandbar. If the game goes slightly longer, I can transmute this to Solaria West, so I do have a route to a Lotus Field. I have some mana and I have a Breach, so I do end up keeping this. Our opponent has turn 1 Preordain. We're going to fetch and cycle this Lonely Sandbar. We draw another land, which is not what we wanted at all. Our opponent plays a Swamp and passes. So on turn 3, we draw the Sylvan Scrying right on not time. Note, I'm going to transmute the Lotus Field here, but in case they have some sort of like counterspell, I'd rather not get the Sylvan Scrying countered and get set back a turn, because even though I still have the route to the Lotus, even if the Sylvan gets countered, I just don't have the time to have the Sylvan get countered. I'm feeling under the pressure time-wise. I'm feeling pressured time-wise. They have a Tainted Indulgence, so that's fine. They dump an Atraxa, and they could reanimate it here, certainly. They do. And so here I'm thinking we've probably lost this game, and they're going to take our Breach. They can take one of our Twiddles or something. Yeah, they have Breach. Not Breach. Grief. What on earth is Breach? And yeah, so the Atraxa does go, but we top deck a very nice One Ring that we get the opportunity to resolve here. And so now we're kind of back in this, because they kind of can't beat... I mean, with the Ring's protection, what are they going to do? Okay, they bounce it, but now we can just replay the Ring, right? I did spend a Twiddle on that so that I can untap and then get another activation out of it. The Teferi is not able to bounce right away again, so you know, we can try to just play the Ring here and see, you know, we'll draw some more cards and hopefully get a win out of that. I did have access to their deck list at this point from just they've placed in or played in challenges recently with it. So a lot of these decisions were informed based on the contents of some of their recent deck lists, and me feeling very safe behind the One Ring, and based on the amount of permission that they played. I think they were fairly light on permission, if I recall correctly. Now we have Veil, which is nice given that they have a little bit of mana up. They have a Dovin's Veto. What did I... Oh, yeah. So I just completely forgot about the Teferi in play and Veiled after that. But I do get to draw a card from that. I think it's actually defensible to not even Veil first, just because any one untap is not that critical. And getting the card draw is a little bit nice. Note that as much as possible I'm trying to go off with the ring here, just because they do have, or there will be a game 3, so I want to show them as little of my deck as possible. Especially sideboard choices that I made. I do bounce the Teferi just as an extra layer of safety in case I need to Pact. And we win with Thassa's Oracle. So it's 1-1 and into the decider game 3. So here we have a hand that I actually do like a decent amount. We have the means to go get a Lotus Field Sylvan Scrying. We have some combo as far as Wish and Dreamscript. This double Veil of Summer is actually pretty nice, given their ability to shut us out is basically comes from permission and from mainly discard. So Veil answers both, and they're not like a turn 1 discard deck. They're like a do their combo and then scam us multiple times on like turn 3 to just like close out the game with discard type of deck. So Veil is better here than it is against something like proper like red-black scam. So they picked up that like flashback card that loots the blue-white one. So we fetch tapped. We're going to play the Sylvan Scrying here. I mean, they do have a window, but we need to play the Sylvan Scrying sooner or later, and with no other land in our hand, I'm willing to take the risk here. So they also didn't have a target in their graveyard yet, so I think they weren't going to have it there no matter what, actually. So they play the Faithful Mending. We have a Lotus Field. Sack 2 lands. Note, I'm floating a green because I do now have the ability to use a Veil defensively. So we Dreamscript, the Vizier, and I'm playing around them having some sort of permission with leaving this green up. I'm going to play the Ring. And they have Force Negation, and we have Veil. So they fetch. They ephemerate their Philology Archaeologist to try to find probably another Force Negation. Fortunately, they do not. And now we have the Ring in play, which is very nice. They play Teferi and bounce our Ring. Again, they have 1 mana up. Cycling the Lotus Field. They cycle the Lotus Field again. I'm going to play another copy of the One Ring. The Ephemerate, bringing back the Force. Oh no, they found another Force Negation. What did I do? Oh, right, I forgot they had the Teferi in play. I don't know why I've been forgetting Teferi today. I really do think I was just tired, and I know that sounds like an excuse, but yeah, I think I was just tired. I don't know what the deal is, because that is absolutely not a mistake I would ever normally make. But they exile our Ring. I still think we're in a decent spot. They have 2 cards in hand, but like we have Veil of Summer, we have Lonely Sandbar. So here we're just playing the Lonely Sandbar and passing. We have another One Ring. They grief us and they take our other One Ring. But I mean, now we have like Hidden Strings, Wish, Breach. We can go nuts with the graveyard side of the combo. So that was absolutely a mistake, and I should have Veiled in advance into the Teferi in order to resolve our Ring, but we just gave them a window that we absolutely should not have given them. And then we kill them with Grape Shot. just as a little bit of a juke in case, I don't know what they could possibly have with like one card in hand. It can't be Solitude. Nothing I can think of, but why not? And they do actually collect the whole thing down. Maybe they're trying to time us out. Oh no, they don't. They don't click it down. Whatever. I don't know. So we win the game 3. So now we are 4-2. We're almost certainly dead for top 8. I think like a 6-2 can make it, but we'd have to win both rounds, and our breakers are kind of mediocre. So, and we're still definitely playing for like a top 16 or something like that if we can win out in the remaining 2. So let's see how that goes. So here is round number 7. Our opponent leads on a tapped Blood Crypt, so they are playing Scam. Our opening hand is like okay here. We have a lot of pieces other than a Lotus Field, which we do need to find, but we do have a redraw with Lonely Sandbar. I do lead on a Flooded Strand here that I draw, because I can fetch a Breeding Pool. And then if we find a Sylvan Scrying, just be ready to play it immediately. The thinning from the Flooded Strand will also be of marginal benefit. They have a turn 2 Scammed Grief. And we cycle our Flooded Strand. We do pick up a Talaria West, which is nice. But I'm a little concerned about the speed here. They do have Grief and now a Goblin Shaman. But we don't have a red mana, so we can't Lightning Bolt anything down, and we do need to go get this Lotus Field. So we do get our Lotus Field. The Fable ticks down. They hit us for 6 more. Put us to 7. Play a Magus of the Moon. But we have Lightning Bolt. So we can play the Lotus Field. Note, we play the Lotus Field before we bolt the Moon, so we can really capitalize on not having to sacrifice the lands. And, oh, the other thing which I clicked through very quickly there, but is actually very important to highlight. They had a 1 mana with this treasure left up after the Magus of the Moon. So I spent my blue mana on Dream Scripting down the treasure. If they had another Not Dead After All, or, you know, one of their scam spells, then they could have brought the Magus back in the face of the bolt, and then we would have been busted. So what I had to calculate there was, do I have enough mana to do everything, even if I spend a Dream Script on the token? And the answer is yes, I do. So that was a pretty key move. I don't know if they actually had it or not. They didn't end up floating the mana. Maybe they didn't want to give us information about whether or not they had it. But if they had floated mana, then I could have passed to my second main and played around it. So now, I mean, we don't actually have... Oh no, we do have a Wish in our graveyard, so we're just fine. And we're going off with Tome Scour, and they concede. So another game 1 against Scam that we get, even through Magus, thanks to our main deck Lightning Bolts. I definitely do like the main deck Lightning Bolts. Those have been... They felt good. It feels good to have access to that little bit of interaction if you need it. So on to game number 2. Our hand here is a little bit slow, but we do have T-West. We do have the ability to get a Lotus Field. We have double Island into the face of Blood Moon, so I am going to go ahead and keep this. Our opponent has turn 1 Ragavan. We have an Island. And then they have a Douthie. We're playing that so that we can Veil if we need to, and or fetch a tap land to preserve life total if we don't need to. We do Veil. Here we have to cycle. I know they have 8 life or 8 damage worth of damage, so if they have a bolt, we're dead. But if we don't cycle now, when are we cycling? We're not going to have the chance to next turn. And I don't have the red to play this bolt anyway, so this is one of those situations where sometimes you have to take the chance to win instead of taking the chance to not lose. So if I could, yes, I could twiddle something down and probably live through their next turn, but I'm going to just risk it here because if I don't, I'm not winning this game. So they put me down to 2. We have another grief. Take one of our wishes. Scam the grief. Take our other wish. So that's brutal. And here I scoop. Why do I? Oh yeah, because we just have no. We have no way to win. And we can play the field. We can bolt something, but like, we can't win. We have no business. So yeah, the grief followed by scammed grief definitely got us there. So yeah, on to game number 3. Okay, so we have something here that is definitely a slower hand. We do have Echoing Truth plus Islands for some sort of moon effect. We have a Breach. We have a means of getting Lotus Field. So I think I do keep this, although I am not happy about it. But I was concerned about a moon effect. Twiddle's like fine. I do need one, but I need some other stuff too. They have the Scammed Grief. We pick up Aria. And I end up actually, yeah, so I transmute for a Lotus Field. They have a Chalice on 1, which, okay, I mean, sure. We have a Douthie in place, so our Breach is off. We drew out a fetch land, and now I'm just going to choose to play this Aria. And I do have Twiddle, which is a spell. Maybe we'll draw some other stuff. They hit for 3. We draw a Hidden Strings. They have a Bowmasters. They clock us for another 5. I'm twiddling now just to put the counter on it and deal a damage. We Otawara, but the problem here is even if we Otawara the Douthie, we are still dead to Mount Doom, 2 Mount Doom picks plus the 2 tokens. So if you look at that, I mean, we played this Aria when we're at like 15 life, and then within like 2 turns we're dying. So I think Aria is just too slow. Like, we had the right setup for Aria, right? We put it into play. We had a couple spells, but we just never really got the chance to string something together with it. And maybe you can say we flooded out a little bit this game. I think in hindsight, I probably should not have kept that opening hand. I just feel like Aria was not the way to go. So it was a science experiment gone poorly. Like I said, I had never tried it in Twiddle until this. I will probably try it again at some point in the future, but I think I'll wait for some sort of meta shift in order to do that, because at the moment, I think it's probably just too slow and not really where we need to be. But it was an attempt at figuring out something for the scam matchup that was a little bit orthogonal to both the One Ring and Breach, because basically the scam matchup is this weird 50-50 where, like, if you have Ring and they have Douthie, you're happy. If you have Breach and they have Bowmasters, you're happy. But if you have Ring and they have Bowmasters, you're unhappy. If you have Breach and they have Douthie, you're unhappy. So there's like this like 50-50 that happens for each of you depending on which half of your deck you draw. But then there's the fact that they just have Scam Griefs that they can do in the meantime, which makes this matchup, I feel, not very good. So I'll do a little bit more iterating. I'm curious to see if there's something I can come up with that sort of attacks what I want to attack in the matchup. Not necessarily sure what that would be yet, but worth thinking about. Maybe there's some sort of like big creature that kind of kills everything that they're doing. Like Elish Norn or something like that, maybe. I don't know. That's nuts. Kills 1/1s, kills 2/2s, kills, well, if you get a Elish Norn out through Magus, congratulations. I don't know. That's I'm just cooking there. I don't know if that's probably not actually it, but moral of the story, I want some other plan for Scam, and Aria Flame is not it. So we are now 4-3, unfortunately. So we do play round number 8, but our chances of like a top 16 or something like that have just died. So here our opening hand is reasonably nice. Well, I wouldn't say reasonably nice, but we have some untaps. We have an Otawara as interaction. We have Consider to try and find a way to get Lotus Field. So this is keepable, especially on the draw where I get that extra card draw. And so we have Flooded Strand. And we're going to bolt this Delighted Halfling. Yes, they could have a Bowmasters, but I would like to slow them down, given that I think there's some chance that my hand is slow. I do have Otawara for a potential Bowmasters. I also maybe, especially with Wish, could just be on the graveyard plan. So we pick up Talaria West, which is good. That is a way for us to get our Lotus Field. We fetch on end step, they Bowmasters. I'm not sure why they're Bowmastersing now. That feels like a little bit of a mistake. I can just Consider in response. Don't need a Boseiju, and then I pick up a redundant Talaria West. We get to untap, and we get to transmute and go get a Lotus Field. They play a Grist, attack us for a few more. We take the Bowmaster's hit to untap our Lotus Field, because we do need to draw some untappers, but we don't, so we can't really go for a Wish play here. And that means that we're going for the One Ring. I'm just going to draw the card now, because basically we're on the win next turn or bust plan. I mean, we could play another One Ring maybe, but do it while we have protection. The Bowmaster's Orc army size does not matter. They play a million more tokens. Well, not tokens. They make another token. They make a million more creatures. We're going to draw some cards into this Bowmasters, even though I'm at 9. If they have another Bowmasters, I'm still in okay shape. And like I said, we need to hit untappers. So we hit Hidden Strings, so that's kind of perfect. So I can untap both of these. I can Breach. I have multiple Hidden Strings. We have Wish, and now we can go off with Tome Scour. We do actually no, we kill the Bowmasters first. I forgot about that. We're still going off with Tome Scour. No, we Tome Scoured. What did I do? I'm doing some sort of weird hybrid thing here. Oh, it's because I tapped their land. I could solve Chord. I mean, even I need to actually be a little bit careful here. Oh yeah, so okay, so I have Wish active before I take a one draw that would kill me if they had like Chord for Bowmasters or something like that. So now I could Veil if I needed to, as long as I hold the green up. Exactly. So I'm holding the green up for Veil. And now I'm comfortable using the ring again. So this was actually some sequencing that was definitely trying to play around things as much as possible. But we get there, and we play Oracle, and along the way we picked up our Pact as an extra layer of insurance. So again, Yawgmoth, easy matchup for the most part. Not to say it's unlosable, but generally I'm happy to see Yawgmoth across from the table. Or across the table. And we pick up game number 1. So now we are on to game number. So our game 2 hand, we do have Breach, Wish, Untappers, and Veil. So we have 2 lands also, and we just need to find Lotus Field. So we do go ahead and keep this. Veil gives us an answer to Bowmasters. Play Flooded Strand on 1. Our opponent has a Soul Cauldron. We fetch. We draw something that is not a means of getting Lotus Field, but we do play our second land. Otawara could potentially be useful against Soul Cauldron in the future. They play Grist. Now on their end step, I'm going to deliberately choose not to play this Vizier because I definitely don't want to give them Vizier on Soul Cauldron. They can do like various combo-y things with that of like Soul Cauldron, creature, untap Soul Cauldron, and just go nuts. So I do not want to put these into my graveyard until I absolutely am comboing with them. So we do pick up Sylvan Scrying, that finds Lotus Field, which is very nice. They eat a Scooze. And they thought sees us taking our One Ring, which is very annoying because I did want to be on the One Ring plan, given that they have Soul Cauldron and like an active Scooze insect. So they can definitely eat out our graveyard a little bit. We do have Breach here, and I lead on Breach and then Hidden Strings. So there's some sequencing that goes into this. If they eat nothing, I can Hidden Strings and I can just immediately play the One Ring. And essentially, I've used Breach as a way to get my ring out of the graveyard. And yes, I had to invest a Hidden Strings to do so, but then I'm protected for a turn, and I'm almost certainly winning next turn with like Ring, Veil, Vizier. So this almost forces them to eat my One Ring. If they do eat my One Ring, then that means they only have one, because they have two activations of things that they can eat left. One with the Insect Token and one with the Soul Cauldron. They have two cards in hand. So if they eat my One Ring, and I Hidden Strings now, I can then use three of these cards and immediately flashback Hidden Strings. So I get two uses of Hidden Strings out of it before they can eat Hidden Strings. And then I get to wish and I have more mana and I can maybe do other stuff. So that's basically the thought process here. So they do eat the One Ring, which they are basically priced into doing there. And now I Hidden Strings again. I cycle Vizier now that Soul Cauldron is tapped. And at this point, to some extent, I'm just kind of baiting them to see, what are you going to eat? Picking up Twiddle was a nice draw. And I can... What's it called? I'm basically trying to make as much mana as I can before Wish, so I can flash back as many Tome Scours as I can. Because basically, I think the plan that I had, if I recall correctly, was... Okay, so if they're saving the other one for Tome Scour as many times as I possibly can by making as much mana before Wish as I can. Mill something like 20 cards, certainly mill over like a Twiddle or a Dream's Grip, and almost certainly another One Ring. And then my plan is to make a bunch of mana, flashback a One Ring, and finish the combo with One Ring. So that's the thought process. But I pick up another Twiddle, so now I Twiddle. And they eat the Hidden Strings. So now I'm just smooth sailing. So I can wish for Tome Scour. Tome Scour a whole bunch. And we can get there. Note I'm playing the Double Wish just for the extra layer of insulation with Pact of Negation. That's especially important here because they could conceivably have had like an Endurance that they were saving for Oracle. Now, if they were doing that, they really should have played the Endurance earlier, but it's always worth, playing around something where there's no downside in it for you. So we end up 5-3, and, this was actually I think the first challenge I've ever played. I've played a decent amount of Magic online, but I've usually just been busy on the weekends when the challenges are on, and I never feel like I can commit a full day to playing a challenge. But I was pretty happy with it, and I do intend to play some more in the future. So who knows? Maybe it'll be more Twiddle, maybe it'll be some other things. I do want to try some ad nauseum One Ring stuff now that I have One Rings online. There's always Legacy. Legacy is my favorite format. So, Doomsday or Storm would be what I'd be playing there. And then there's other brews, other cool stuff. Thinking about some of the different options there. I also have been vaguely trying to brew around with like Lotus Field, One Ring, Twiddle, Beseech, Amulet of Vigor, Urza's Saga stuff. Beseech sacking Amulet after it untapped Lotus is a nice little synergy. And basically that feels like it could vaguely be like a legacy deck. Something I need to play around with more. My current dilemma is that I feel like the win con is not there. If only we had tendrils, I would be so happy, but we do not have tendrils, and so we have to make do. Maybe tendrils coming in Modern Horizon 3, please. I'm not saying it actually is. I think it's probably not that likely to, but I would love that. So let's see. And other than that, definitely feel free to let me know in the comments if you liked this video format. I have been doing more stuff from replays. I heard some positive things about that. Some of the analysis can definitely be pretty nice, and it cuts out some time. I mean, overall, you may have, if you just watched this whole thing, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you probably just watched like an entire 8-match challenge in like an hour and 20 minutes or something. So if the pace was too fast, then, I mean, A, YouTube has a slowdown feature. B, let me know and I can try and slow it down a little bit more. Just looking to see what works, trying different stuff out, and who knows, definitely open to changing things up. But until next time, keep twiddling. Twiddle as much as you possibly can, and if you're playing other combo decks, that's great too. If you're not playing combo decks, what are you doing here? Get out. I don't want you here. Just kidding. No, you can stay. But yeah. Until next time. Take care.